Hello, and welcome to another talk at IPN. This is the awakening of polyphasic consciousness through dreaming and psychedelics. And in this talk today, I am going to discuss with you my belief and research on why dream work must be part of the psychedelic movement. My name is Alexandra Carelli. I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, and I'm currently a PhD student at Sophia University studying transpersonal psychology, and my concentration is in dream studies. So, my research focuses on social dreaming, eco-psychology, and Indigenous and shamanic dream traditions. My dissertation is going to be exploring community-based dream work groups for couples and using this as an intervention to cultivate connection, intimacy, and a sense of belonging in our disconnected world. So, why dream work? Why psychedelics? Why am I talking about this? When I began my PhD studies, I was really interested in psychedelics. That's what kind of drew me and inspired me and catalyzed my interest in obtaining a PhD. But as I immersed myself in the literature on shamanism and on altered states of consciousness, I began to notice a very distinct pattern emerging in the research. Across Indigenous cultures around the world, dreaming and entheogenic practices are rarely separated. In many cultures, actually, dreams guide the use of plant medicine. Plant medicines influence dreams, and together these practices form a unified system for healing, knowledge, and relationship with the more than human world. Sorry. This observation in my research led me to this question that has become central in my work. Is it actually extractive for modern Western culture to be separating psychedelics from the dream state? Just as we have extracted psychedelic substances from their traditional ceremonial and cultural contexts, have we also extracted them from the dreaming traditions that historically accompanied them? And if so, what is lost when we separate the medicine from the dream? Today, through this presentation, I invite us to explore the possibility that dreaming and psychedelics are interwoven. They are not separate pathways to consciousness, but are inextricable expressions of the same visionary tradition. So, before we can explore the relationship between dreaming and psychedelics, we need a framework for understanding consciousness itself. I first came across most of these terms through the work of this incredible anthropologist, Tara Lumpkin. She wrote a paper in 2001 that has become one of like the mainstays of my research. And in anthropology, they often distinguish between monophasic and polyphasic cultures. So, with monophasic consciousness, we privilege ordinary waking rational awareness as the primary or only valid way of knowing reality. It prioritizes Western scientific rationalism, which can be proven and known. Altered states and dreaming experiences are often dismissed as less real somehow than waking consciousness. In polyphasic consciousness, by contrast, we recognize multiple states of awareness, including dreaming, trance, visionary states, and waking consciousness, all as legitimate sources of knowledge and guidance. There is an understanding that information can be derived in ways that cannot be fully known or seen. Many indigenous traditions are rooted within what's considered a polyphasic cosmology, a worldview that understands dreams, visions, and waking reality all as interconnected dimensions of a single living world rather than separate domains. Polyphasic cosmology engages perceptual diversity, or many ways of experiencing reality, learning, and understanding our world. This is a hallmark of animistic traditions or animistic consciousness, a way of relating to the living world as if all beings in it are alive and sentient. Arguably, before global colonization, the majority of humans on Earth lived within an animistic cosmology. One final distinction is important for you to understand. Dreaming is endogenous, which means it arises from within the body itself. Unlike psychedelic medicines, dreams require no external substance. They are an innate human capacity for visionary and imaginative experience. The word entheogen refers to a substance that evokes altered or visionary states of consciousness or an exogenous experience, something that is external. From a polyphasic perspective, dreams and entheogens are not separate phenomena. One is endogenous or occurring from within, and one is exogenous or external from without. But both provide access to expanded states of consciousness. So we will return to these terms. These are some of my favorite words. I know some of them feel big, but I promise you're going to catch on as we go through. Okay. Let's do a little bit of internal exploration to begin. So, how many of you have ever had a dream that profoundly impacted your life? Maybe there was a dream that stayed with you for days, for months, or even years. Maybe there's even a dream that you remember from childhood that either still returns or you just still have memory of. Maybe this dream offered you guidance or warned you about something. Maybe it connected you to a loved one that had already passed or revealed a truth or piece of information that you were not ready to see yet. Now, let me ask you a second question. How many of you actually listened to that dream? And by listened, I mean that you sat down with a pen and paper and gave a signal to the dream realm that you are an awake and aware student ready to receive its messages. Then you wrote it out, reflected on it, and genuinely attempted to understand what the dream might be communicating to you. How many of you actually use that dream as a guide for your life? For most people, the answer is that you haven't done that and you didn't do that. And that's okay. That's normal in Western culture. Maybe you've looked up a symbol from a dream in a dream dictionary. Maybe you've searched for an interpretation online. Or now that we live in the age of AI, maybe you've even plugged it into ChatGPT to try and get some more insight about your dream. But dreams are not always puzzles to be solved. They are communications that can be entered into relationship with. And many Indigenous cultures already knew this. They understood dreams in exactly this way, that our dreams are a living dialogue with the world. Whether we interpret the source of the dream as the unconscious, the psyche, our ancestors, the more than human world, or the living intelligence of the earth, the invitation is the same, to slow down and to listen. So I'd like to invite you into a brief meditation. If you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. Take a slow breath in and a slow breath out. Allow yourself to remember this dream, recalling any details, any emotions, any images. Notice what arises in your body as you remember it. And ask yourself, what was this dream showing me? What wisdom from that dream is still relevant today? Take one more slow, deep breath, inviting all of this dream's lessons, messages, and symbols to reveal themselves to you and integrate into your consciousness more deeply. And when you're ready, slowly make your way back to your body, thanking this dream for its mysterious wisdom. Begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes, making any body movements that kind of bring you back. And then when you're ready, gently opening your eyes. My invitation today is simple: to get curious about if our dreams matter more than we have been taught to believe. So, If dreaming is such a universal human experience, how did we become a culture that largely ignores it? I would argue that we have inherited a form of cultural dream impoverishment, a concept that I learned from my PhD advisor, an amazing dream researcher, Dr. Angel Morgan. Absolutely lovely woman. In Western culture, we are rarely taught to value the dream realm. Most of us receive little or no education about how to remember dreams, work with dreams, or integrate dream wisdom into our lives. What's fascinating is that wasn't always the case. Even within the Judeo-Christian tradition, dreams were once regarded as legitimate sources of revelation and guidance. Again and again throughout ancient texts, dreams appear as channels through which wisdom and divine communication enter the world. Yet, over time, particularly through the rise of scientific rationalism and the persecution of dreamers and oracles, and the expansion of colonialism, alternative ways of knowing became increasingly suspect. Many indigenous and pagan cultures whose social, ecological, and spiritual lives were organized around dreams and visions were actively discouraged or forbidden from maintaining those practices. In Europe, you could actually be put to death for listening to or sharing your dreams. Over centuries, Western culture gradually narrowed its understanding of consciousness, becoming monophasic. We became what anthropologists call a monophasic culture, a culture that privileges waking, rational consciousness while devaluing dreams, visions, intuition, and altered states. And the consequence was not simply that we forgot to work with dreams. We lost perceptual diversity. We lost access to an entire mode of relationship with ourselves, one another, and with the living earth, resulting in something like a spiritual disassociation. I want to explore something that's so common we rarely even notice it. Imagine a child wakes up from a nightmare. What is the first thing that we say to them? We say, "It's okay. It was only a dream. It wasn't real. Go back to sleep." Most of us have heard some version of this message thousands of times throughout our lives. Modern Western society teaches children from an early age to direct all of their attention and consciousness almost exclusively towards waking reality. Dreams are treated as private fantasies, maybe interesting occasionally, maybe scary sometimes, but not important, and certainly not sources of knowledge. We are not born dismissing our dreams. In fact, we're born having all sorts of dreams, but we are taught to dismiss them. This is enculturation. We inherit what I call the cultural lullaby of dream impoverishment. It's just a dream. It's just a dream. It's just a dream. Over time, that lullaby narrows our awareness and keeps us anchored almost exclusively in waking rational consciousness. Yet to this day, many cultures teach the opposite lesson. They teach children that dreams matter, that dreams contain information that can guide decisions, reveal imbalances in our own health and vitality, strengthen relationships and social bonding, and connect us with a larger living reality. So then the question becomes, what happens when a culture listens to its dreams rather than dismisses them? At this point, I want to move beyond theory and take a look at some examples from polyphasic indigenous traditions. One of my favorites that I've come across is the Aguaruna people of Ecuador. Anthropologist Michael Brown, way back in 1987, documented their use of this word, kahamat. Kahamat has become one of my absolute favorite words that I have come across in my research. And what is fascinating about this term is that it does not distinguish between dreams, waking visions, or hallucinatory experiences induced by psychoactive plants. Instead, these experiences are understood as existing within a continuum of consciousness. Kahamat refers to a vision that can be received through any of these states of consciousness. In Western culture, we tend to place experiences into separate categories. This is a dream. This is imagination. This is a meditation. This is a psychedelic experience. And this is reality. But in many indigenous cosmologies, those boundaries are far more fluid. Dreams, visions, plant medicines are all understood as expressions of a visionary field. The Shipibo Onaya tradition provides another powerful example. And another one of my favorite researchers, Yumi Watanabe, who published an incredible paper in 2025, explains that in the Shipibo Onaya tradition, you can only work with the medicine and plants if they come and teach you in your dreams. Think about that for a moment. Within this worldview, dreams are not secondary to the medicine, they are part of the medicine. A relationship with the plant in the dream realm is required for your training. The dream is just one of the ways the plant teaches. And this raises an important question to modern psychedelic culture. What happens when we adopt the medicine but leave behind the dreaming practice that traditionally accompanies it? I believe that we lose three important things. Preparation. In many Indigenous traditions, dreams are often the way that the relationship is initiated between the dreamer and the plant ceremony long before the ceremony, or the plant medicine, long before the ceremony begins. The plants will come and speak to you in your dreams. And oftentimes, the call to work with a medicine comes from a dream itself, not from logical waking consciousness, and definitely not from Instagram marketing. Another thing that I think we lose is this relationship. In many of these traditions, medicines are not substances. They are spirits and beings and intelligences that are encountered through an ongoing dialogue that occurs oftentimes in dreams. And the other thing I think we miss is integration. While a ceremony may last a night, dreams continue a conversation long after the ceremony ends. Perhaps one of the missing pieces in modern psychedelic culture is not another medicine or protocol, but is deepening our relationship with these plant medicines and remembering how to listen. So, given all of this information, perhaps the deeper question is not how do we integrate dream work into psychedelic practice, but rather how did dream work become separated from psychedelic practice to begin with? How did we even get here? I think you all know the answer to this. Western extractionism. Extractionism is often discussed in relation to natural resources, oil from the earth, minerals from mountains, timber from forests, but it can also occur culturally. We can extract a culture or a practice from a tradition, such as we see in cultural appropriation. I am suggesting that this has potentially happened with the modern psychedelic movement regarding the loss of the dream practices in regards to our work with psychedelic medicine. We have studied the molecules, we've mapped the neurochemistry, we have developed therapeutic protocols, and these all have tremendous value. But in many indigenous traditions, they were never working just with the medicine. There was an entire ecology of consciousness that included dreams, visions, ritual, relationship, community, ancestors, and the living world. The medicine was never meant to stand alone. It was a thread within a much larger tapestry. In Western culture, we can only extract what we can touch, see, taste, or feel with our material senses. It's a lot harder for us to understand something that is unseen. So often we just leave it behind. I'd like to share a short personal story. So last year, I sat in a ceremony with Iboga. It was one of the most profound experiences of my life. The ceremony itself was very powerful. But what stayed with me was not what happened during the ceremony, it was what occurred afterwards. A couple nights after that ceremony, the medicine returned to me in a dream. In this dream, the medicine was alive. I felt the same intelligence, the same presence, the same quality that I encountered during the ceremony itself. And in that moment, after that dream, I understood something that I hadn't fully grasped before. The dream wasn't commenting on the medicine, it was continuing the medicine. Many of us are familiar with Ram Dass's favorite quote, when you get the message, hang up the phone. And after that ceremony and that dream, I finally understood what that meant. Within a very short period of time, I stopped working with other psychedelics or any psychedelics altogether. I felt like the message had been received. And now, nearly a year later, I remain completely sober from psychedelics, and any substances. I've received my assignment to sit and work with my own existential fear that I encountered in that medicine and then revisit it again in that dream through my daily practice of meditation, writing, walking in nature, and my own dream work. This integration has been absolutely life-changing. What this experience taught me is that transformation is not necessarily found in taking more medicine. Transformation comes from listening more deeply. And as I reflected on this experience, I realized something that the indigenous cultures that I research have described this same relationship for a very, very long time. The Aguaruna offer a beautiful expression of this idea. Ayahuasca is for seeing, and dreams are for receiving. I want you to sit with that for a moment. In Western culture, we often think of the psychedelic experience as the primary event. The ceremony is a center of gravity. The dream, if it is ever considered, is thought of as secondary. But within this worldview, dreams are not secondary. Dreaming is a part of the visionary process itself. Ayahuasca opens perception, but then dreams continue the conversation and allow us to receive deeper wisdom and integrate it back into our daily lives. The ceremony does not end when the effects of the medicine wear off. The dialogue continues. This polyphasic perspective suggests that transformation emerges through relationship with the medicine, the spirit, the dream, and the wider field of consciousness that holds all of it. From this perspective, dreams and psychedelics are not any sort of competing pathway. They are complementary dimensions of the same visionary ecology. For over a decade, I have worked with my own dreams. The experience I had with Iboga did not teach me that dreams are important, but it did provide a transformation in my understanding of consciousness. What it revealed to me is that dreaming and psychedelic states are not separate domains. Dreams and visionary states participate in the same continuum of consciousness, and both the medicine and the dreams invite us into deeper relationship. For many years, I believed the deeper healing required deeper journeys, more ceremonies, more medicine, more transformational experiences. But after that ceremony and that dream, I realized that I did not need more. I just needed more tools to understand the messages I was already receiving. And I needed to listen more deeply. And I have found that when one awakens to the importance of their dreams, there's not a destination to be reached, but there is a shift in how one is relating to and perceiving reality. At this point in my presentation, you might be wondering, okay, but why does any of this matter? Why should I care about my dreams? I believe it matters because we are living through a time of a profound crisis of relationship. We are disconnected from ourselves, we're disconnected from one another, and we are increasingly disconnected from the earth. The ecological crisis is a crisis of perception. And this is what Tara Lumpkin was talking about with perceptual diversity. It is a crisis of consciousness. Dreamwork invites us to move beyond seeing the world as inert matter and begin experiencing it as alive, relational, and participatory all the time, not just when we're in ceremony or when we've ingested a medicine. It invites us back into relationship with our own psyche, with the mystery, and with the more than human world. Dreamwork alone will not solve climate change, and psychedelics alone will not revolutionize culture. But together, they do have the potential to transform consciousness. And transformed consciousness changes how we relate to ourselves, to each other, and to the world around us. And we begin to remember that we are not separate from the earth. We are participants within it. I would like to leave you with a simple proposition that dream work belongs, oh, this way. Dreamwork belongs in the psychedelic movement. Throughout history, these practices have rarely existed apart from one another. Again and again, we find dreams guiding the use of medicines, preparing individuals for initiation, and continuing teachings after the ceremony. Psychedelics may open the doorway, but dreams continue the conversation. Every single night when we go to sleep, each of us enters a visionary state of consciousness. And this consciousness offers us an opportunity to listen more deeply. I believe that these practices support us to open the doors of perception and will lead us to a more holistic ecology of consciousness. I want to thank you so much for coming on this journey with me today, for your time, your attention, and your willingness to explore these ideas. Thank you so much to Ash, my amazing coach, for all of your adaptability and support and openness to this new way of perceiving things and thinking about things. And thank you so much to IPN for this opportunity to share this work that I am so, so, so passionate about. My hope is that all of you leave this talk with some curiosity. What might change if collectively we begin to listen to our dreams? Perhaps one of the most accessible and overlooked paths to transformation is already available to us every single night. All that remains is our willingness to listen. Thank you so much. You can check out more of my work at alexandracarelli.com, on my Substack called Earth Dreaming, alexandracarelli.substack.com, or over on Instagram, where I bring a touch of humor to this work at alexandra.carelli. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you there.